Every year, malnutrition kills 5 million children. That's one child every 6 seconds. Despite those heartbreaking statistics, we actually found a good news story about malnutrition. As we reported last fall, the Nobel Prize-winning relief group Doctors Without Borders says it finally has something that can save millions of young lives. It's cheap, easy to make, and even easier to use. So what is this miraculous cure? It's a ready-to-eat, vitamin-enriched concoction called PlumpyNut, an unusual name for a food that may just be the most important advance ever to cure and prevent malnutrition.
It's a revolution in nutritional affairs. I mean, this is
a revolution.
It's a revolution.
Dr. Milton Tectonidis is the chief nutritionist for Doctors Without Borders.
Now we have something. It is like an essential medicine. In 3 weeks, we can cure a kid that is looking like they're half dead. We can cure them just like an antibiotic. It's just boom. It's a spectacular response.
It's the equivalent of penicillin, you're saying?
For these kids, for sure.
No kids need it more than these children in Niger, a desperately poor country in West Africa where child malnutrition is so widespread, most mothers have watched at least one of their children die. Why are so many kids dying? Because they can't get the milk, vitamins, and minerals their young bodies need. Mothers in these villages can't produce enough milk themselves and can't afford to buy it. Even if they could, they're unable to store it. There's no electricity, so no refrigeration. Powdered milk is useless because most villagers don't have clean water. PlumpyNut was designed to overcome all these obstacles. PlumpyNut is a remarkably simple concoction. It's basically peanut butter, powdered milk, powdered sugar, enriched with vitamins and minerals. It tastes, well, like a peanut butter paste. It's very sweet, and because of that, the kids here can't get enough of it. The formula was developed by a nutritionist. It doesn't need refrigeration or water or cooking. Mothers simply squeeze out the paste. Many children can even feed themselves. Each serving is the equivalent of a glass of milk and a multivitamin. To see the impact it's having, we drove for 12 hours from Niger's capital to a remote village, where every week Doctors Without Borders hands out PlumpyNut. After sleeping in a field under mosquito nets, we awoke at sunrise to find mothers emerging from the fields. Many had walked for hours in the dark along treacherous paths, avoiding scorpions, spiders, and poisonous snakes. Rivers of women flowed into the site, and within minutes there were more than 1,000 of them, all waiting to get packets or tubs of PlumpyNut. In a land where plastic bags are a luxury, they carried the PlumpyNut home in their scarves, their hands, or simply stacked on top of their heads. When you see some of these kids, they don't look sick. They don't look malnourished. They don't have bloated bellies or little stick arms.
The ones that we're used to seeing on TV, that's the worst of the worst. It's the tip of the iceberg. There's a whole spectrum of malnutrition. And when we go and check these kids, well, they're way off. In height or in weight, they're way off.
Niger has become PlumpyNut's proving ground. A daily dose costs about $1. Small factories mix it here and in 3 other African countries. Dr. Tectonidis says other companies could make similar products wherever children need them.
We just have to focus on these areas. We don't have to feed the whole world. We have to go for the jugular. Where are they dying? Where are they wasted? That's where we have to intervene. If you feed them well until they're 2 or 3 years old, it's won. They're healthy. They can get a healthy life. If you miss that window, it's finished. It's finished. It's too late.
It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
In Niger, most children need help now, during what's called the hunger season, just before the new harvest. Old food supplies have run out, and about all that's left is millet, a basic grain women pound for porridge. But millet doesn't have enough nutrients to keep kids alive. In America, we use it as bird seed. Normally, this children's hospital would have more patients than beds. But now, thanks to PlumpyNut, it has empty beds. Dr. Susan Shepard, a pediatrician from Butte, Montana, runs Doctors Without Borders in Niger. Kids who would have had to have been hospitalized don't have to be hospitalized.
Don't have to be hospitalized anymore. We can treat them at home now.
The reason we can do that is because we can give children PlumpyNut here in the ambulatory center, and they take a week's ration home. Moms treat their children at home and come back every week for a weight check.
That's what Sahia Ibrahim has been doing. She's already lost 4 children to malnutrition. Now her 6-month-old twins, Hassana and Husseina, are malnourished, and she's worried they might die too. So she's been coming here for PlumpyNut.
Hassana's 6 months old but weighs 7 pounds. That's really what a newborn should weigh.
Right. In the past week, since she started PlumpyNut, she's gained a pound. So she's gained, 15%.
That's amazing.
While she waited, Sahia asked me to hold one of her twins.
Hey.
But little Husseina didn't seem to think that was such a good idea. Children are weighed and measured at the distribution sites. They're also examined to make sure they don't have any serious infections. Malnutrition destroys a child's immune system, so they're more susceptible to diseases and less capable of recovering from them.
Often these kids aren't even hungry. It's the opposite. They are anorexic because of the deficiencies they have. They lose their appetite.
That's what happened to Mansour Miku and Marufi Mazu. Less than a year old, they'd stopped eating and become listless and weak. So weak that when their mothers brought them to get PlumpyNut, the nurse put them in a van and sent them straight to the hospital. 3 days later, however, they were smacking their lips on PlumpyNut, almost ready to go home.
Have you seen kids who were on the brink of death brought back by PlumpyNut?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Again and again and again and again.
But not always. Sometimes parents wait too long before bringing their child to doctors. We found Rashida Mamadou in intensive care, barely clinging to life.
Her eyes are open and she's responding with little cries to touch, but she's not awake. Which is just another sign that her heart is not able to pump enough blood.
And what's that on her skin?
Malnourished children often have skin lesions.
So her skin is literally peeling away?
That's one of the consequences of malnutrition.
How serious is she? I mean, how serious is her condition?
Very.
Just 2 hours later, Rashida's little heart stopped beating. She was just 19 months old.
She died of severe acute malnutrition.
And you see that every day?
Every day.
How do you deal with seeing so many kids dying?
Of course it breaks your heart. It can break your spirit. It can ruin your confidence in your ability to be a good doctor. Yeah, I carry memories of many, many children with me, and I'll carry them with me for my entire life. But you certainly cannot indulge yourself in that kind of sadness. We need to do something about this.
If PlumpyNut is the answer, how come kids are still dying?
The answer is getting to kids earlier. Once children are as sick as she is, PlumpyNut is not going to save her.
Rashida was buried in a nearby cemetery, where the gravedigger told us he's burying fewer children than he used to. 2 years ago, this region had the highest malnutrition rate in Niger. But now, after widespread use of PlumpyNut, it has the lowest. Dr. Shepard told us they'll be able to treat more than 120,000 kids this year, up from just 10,000 3 years ago.
What about peanut allergies?
We just don't see it.
You don't see kids with peanut allergies?
We don't see children with symptoms of allergy. In developing countries, food allergy is not nearly the problem that it is in industrialized countries.
It's hard to imagine a less industrialized country than Niger. On a list of 177 developing countries, the United Nations ranked Niger dead last, least developed. More than 70% of the people don't know how to read. Most work in the fields and earn less than $1 a day. Nomadic goat herders still roam this land. Their children and their kids travel by camel. Goats seem to be the main garbage disposal, but clearly the goats are falling behind. You can still spot a skinny guard dog, but we were told all the cats have been cooked. Here in the countryside, where 85% of the people live, girls start marrying at age 11. By 15, most have wed, and by 16, most have already become mothers. The average woman here gives birth 8 times in her lifetime, but largely because of malnutrition, 1 in 5 of those children will die before they reach the age of 5. Those who survive, half of them will have stunted growth and will never reach full adult height. But now, with PlumpyNut, more children are surviving and thriving.
And kids are doing better. Moms say their child's skin is brighter, their appetites are better, and they're less sick. What more could you ask for?
Doctors Without Borders is asking for more of this type of food. Their success in Niger proves, they say, that fortified, ready-to-eat products like PlumpyNut save children's lives. Dr. Tectonitis says if the United States and the European Union were willing to spend part of their food aid on this, more companies would start making it.
Even by taking a minuscule proportion of the global food aid budget, they will have huge impact. Huge impact. We're not even asking for billions, but it will solve so much of the underlying useless death. So we got to do that now.
It's useless death.
Wasted life. Just totally wasted life for nothing because they don't have a bit of peanut butter with vitamins. What a waste.
PlumpyNut production continues to expand slowly, but this year's surge in food prices means malnutrition is expanding much faster. Right now, around the world, about 20 million children are severely malnourished, but Doctors Without Borders says only 3% of those children are getting fortified, ready-to-eat foods like PlumpyNut.